Hey, everybody. Good evening and welcome to First Generation Dad. I'm your host, Tony, or Seven, as my nickname is. I'm going to bring in my co-host for the evening, the guy that's normally our producer, but is going to be our co-host for the evening since Will Morgan is out enjoying his birthday. Welcome, Josh.
What's up, guys?
What's up, buddy? How's your week going?
It's going pretty good. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. I think our topic tonight is going to be really good because my anxiety's been up and down over the last week.
I was about to say the same thing. I'm kind of excited that we're talking about mental health because the mental health in this household has been all over the place this past week.
All over the place. And Eric, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Yes, that is also a replica of what happens when I go to Taco Bell. I'll open this up with a little funny joke today. It's a funny story. So the weekend that Amber moved in with me, this was, we'd been dating about a month, decided, and we've known each other since we were kids though. So that month there, we kind of already knew where things were going. It was kind of just we just too lazy to actually do it. So she finally moves in with me and we decided to celebrate and go to Taco Bell, I decided to let her get a combo. I want to be a big spender. It's set a good impression. But despite the fact that we've known each other since we were kids, what she didn't know is what Taco Bell does to my stomach. So let that be a lesson to anybody thinking about moving in with somebody too early. So we get home, after dinner, get settled in, start, we watch a movie, sexy time's starting to come. And that's about the time I realized that my fast food sins have come calling.
Oh,
I'm trying to fight it. We're going through. And I realized that something's about to happen. So realizing I had a shot and hoping to God that it wasn't anything more, we're both naked at this point. I get on top of her and I inch the blanket over. I got her hands held down, try to be all playful and stuff like that. Get the blanket over us. And I let out. It is the sole reason I believe that there is a God. This fart was perfectly silent. It was just a fart. So I've got her pinned under me, and she's wiggling and giggling, and all of a sudden it turned into swinging and swear words. I kept her pinned down for a minute, let that brand really soak in. I like to think it was God's way of punishing her for all the premarital sex we were having. And so she finally gets out from under me and she runs outside. And of course she's, butt fucking naked. We're living in the studio. She just runs outside. She's trying to rip open the door, but there is a sliding lock on the door. She's fighting with it and just yelling in anger. She finally gets it open. She runs outside. She's just looking at me and she's like, I hate you. And she's just swearing and calling me every name under the book. But she stayed with me. So, respect to her for that, And anything that's gone wrong since then, it's her own fault. She knew she was getting into. If that wasn't a clue, I feel no pity for her at this point.
What a way to start the show.
Go big or go home, man. Dude, that is the way that I do that for my stand-up show. The delivery is so amazing and so good. It's one of my best jokes. It really is. And she hates it. She's probably watching live, and I'm going to get in trouble after this.
Is her name Amber Haddix?
Yeah.
She's already sat in this episode. You're telling that story.
Oh, that's great. I love you. If I'm not here next week, if I'm not alive for Sports Report, it was her. But man, we got to talk about mental health. We got to talk about the importance of mental health. Yes, for dads, that's going to be our focus. Our podcast centered around dad stuff, but this is in general for parents because the conversations about mental health for parents and for kids is not had enough. There's too much of a stigma around it. There's too many people. Oh, when I that didn't exist in my day. We're going to talk about all of that. And I'm going to try and keep from going into multiple swearing rants about that stuff, but we'll dive into it. We're also going to go into some dad culture today, some dad jokes as well along the way. Try to fill it out and have some fun. So just as a quick thought to open this up, when you think about the importance of mental health for parents and kids, for dads, what are some of the things that in your experience you think need to be addressed?
I think there's two things, and one of the ones is we need to address the fact that a lot of our mental health issues are inherited from our parents. Like we need to be able to look at that, and that's one thing I've started doing over the last few years. And um, as far as mental health and neurodivergency, I have depression, ADHD, anxiety, at least those three for sure. And I in discovering those things, I have pinpointed almost where every single one of them comes from. My anxiety comes and depression comes from my father. My ADHD comes from my mother, um, and it's it's also one of the hardest things to do. And I'm not saying that you need to do this for mental health, but one of the hardest things to do is discipline or deal with your child when they're being you. One of the hardest things to do is discipline the you out of your child. And I don't mean discipline in like necessarily the bad way. I just say like trying to deal with their ADHD or their anxiety is 10 times harder than dealing with your own.
And I think the other thing that, and I think a lot of parents don't really think about this. And I think that this is important to remember when you're trying to deal with your children having, with your children's issues and their discipline while you're having your own mental health issues. Like, when my son's having a meltdown and I'm dealing with anxiety issues, like we've got to take a second to look at these things and go, first of all, taking care of our mental health is important. So those situations aren't very frequent, at least to the best of our ability.
Yep.
And I think the second thing is we've got to remember that there are times where our initial knee-jerk reaction to a situation was rooted in our mental health or our habits that we were raised around. And that sometimes we have to take ownership on the fact that we handled the situation incorrectly and go back to that child or those children and say, hey, I messed up. Allowing our kids to hear us acknowledge that we're not perfect is one of the most important things that we can do. Not just not perfect, but that we have mental health issues and that we talk about these things. The reason this is so important is because it's going to instill in them a position and in a belief that it is okay to first acknowledge the issue, to take responsibility when you do something incorrectly, and then also being willing to grow and learn from that. And too many parents don't do that.
You mentioned talking, and recently last year I had a blow up over Christmas with some family members, and led to me and my father almost getting in our first ever like physical altercation ever. And other than I was the frustrating child, so I used to aggravate my parents. I used to do things. I wasn't good in school, and I was a frustrating child. And there was sometimes my dad might swing me across the room, but this was the first time my dad bowed up to me. And my dad is 50 something, almost 60 years old. And like, my first thought was, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to shove him to the ground. He's had a broken neck. He's had cancer. I mean, he's a physically fit guy, but he's fragile. And I was like, I'm going to go down. I'm going to pin him to the ground, and that's going to be the end of this. And it didn't move on from there. But that led to a conversation with my dad, and he believes that there should be boundaries between kids and parents. And that is actually one thing that I have told my wife before when we started dating. That's the one thing I want to end. I don't care if my daughter comes and talks to me about, I'm going to throw this up here before I throw words out, but anal sex. I don't care. I want her to feel 100% comfortable to come talk to me, because if she talks to me about that, she talks to me about her mental health. She tells me how she's feeling. She tells me when she just gets uncontrollable anger, because that is a thing that runs in this family. Rage is definitely a thing that runs in this family. I deal with it on a regular basis. And so if you're open to talk about that, they're open to talk to you about everything else. And that's what I want with my kids. That is one thing I've told myself since I was a kid, that I wanted my kids to know I was a judgment-free zone. I'm going to explain to them the goods, the bads, and they can make their decision. But
I completely agree with your approach. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Kay makes a good point. She'll appreciate it when she's older, and that's exactly true. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was raised by a single mom. It's part of that's part of the meaning of first generation dad and what I created. But I was raised by a single mom, and so my mom had the responsibility of handling both sides of it. So she didn't have somebody to go, oh, he started to get erections. You need to talk with him. Oh, I caught him looking at my bra or trying to steal a pair of underwear. You need to go talk to him. She didn't have that. So what ended up happening, though, my mom was friends with a bunch of romance writers when I was a kid. Fun little fact you can check. There's a book by Christine Feehan. I believe it's called Dark Symphony. It's one of her earlier books in the Carpathian series. My mom was friends with her when I was younger. And she dedicated that book to my mom and I. Okay. Christine Feehan is a New York Times bestselling romance author. Romance books were all around my house when I was a kid. My mom was a single mom. She didn't get laid. So guess what? She read a lot of smut. Okay. It is what it is. But because of the fact that stuff was around, a lot of her friends were either romance authors or in different romance fan groups, because this was back in the early days of the internet, Yahoo message boards. But that stuff was just around. And so sex it was just a topic. It was just there. Now, and not to anything that would be like weird or unconcerning, but I didn't have a problem asking my mom questions because the trust was there. But that also helped because when I was getting bullied, when I got molested when I was 9, when, the different things that happened throughout the later parts of my childhood and into my adolescence, I was able to communicate with my mom that much more. And it's one of the reasons that I stopped myself from killing myself, because of the fact that I was close to my mom, I could really start to see how she would deal with it. We had talked a lot about mental health issues, and I learned about her struggles with addiction and what she went through. It's why I'd never tried any hardcore addictive, like hardcore drugs or anything like that. Was because of the communication and the honesty she had with me. And also her talking to me about, the narcissism and the addiction common pieces in my family. So it was one of those things where, because that communication was there, when something happens, I can go, oh, you know what? I can trace it back. When I think about, because you talked about your stuff. I have ADHD, bipolar 1, anxiety, and I also have complex PTSD. Now, the complex PTSD does stem from multiple traumas. So we're gonna pull that back here for a second. Bipolar 1, ADHD, anxiety, all hereditary. Mental health issues don't just run in my family; it's on our family crest. Like it's there. And I can tell you this, and this is not criticism to any of my family members if they see this, even though we don't talk. Every single one of my family members has had some kind of addiction at some point in their life, whether current or previous. It's different things, but it's there. Now, if my mom wasn't talking to me and breaking those things down to me and making me understand what's there, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to handle my son and be able to anticipate the different things that he could deal with. I wouldn't be, as aware of what's going on to better help him, which better helps the household. So by having those open lines of communication, it's going to have a ripple effect, because when your kids feel like they can talk to you about these things, whether it's mental health, sex, being bullied, you need to talk about a friend issue. When that comfort is there that they can come to you and talk to you about it, that gives you the chance to not just be a parent, but actually teach real life lessons to your child.
A parent is also a mentor. And don't get me wrong, I had great parents. I did. They loved me. They cared for me. And I consider myself blessed in the fact I knew a lot of friends like you in both sides that didn't, either parents divorced at a very young age, their dad wasn't there. And like, I consider myself very blessed because I knew more friends that didn't have one parent than did, that were like me.
Right.
But you hit the nail on the head. I've said on these shows many times, I'm bisexual. Discovering that even though my parents are my dad is super liberal, and I don't really know my mom's stance. She sits somewhere in the middle, but they're also very Christian. So when I was going through all of these feelings and doing all, I had no one to talk to. And that it was really hard. I discovered really a lot about myself through the military. And then when I met my wife when I was 26, like I did a lot of self discovery. She was really helpful in that. And now I'm 32 and I've really started to break down of who I am and what I am really. And it's hard. And also you mentioned too, bullied relentlessly in school, literally from the 5th grade when we moved to all the way through high school. It got better as I got into junior and senior because I moved schools, but like relentlessly have major PTSD from that to the point like the moment I feel attacked, a wall just shoots up and I get defensive. And I hate it. It's frustrating. It's my parents have dealt with it. My wife deals with it. Like, and I don't take criticism well because of it.
One of the things that I've learned when you come from these environments where communication is not what it should be. Now, I'm going to say the reason that I've learned this when I was in high school, I was the sound guy for my youth group. Where I went to church.
So was I.
And I mean, that's actually, where I discovered my love of audio and why I started doing stagehand work.
Me too.
It started there. Like doing sound saved my life. And I mean that in a literal sense.
Same way.
But there was, I was that guy because I didn't have a lot of guy friends. I was friends with a lot of girls. Mm-hmm. And there were so many girls that were in the youth group that struggled with who they were because they came, this was Midwest in Missouri. So, similar environments to what you're used to. And, they couldn't tell their parents that they weren't sure about their sexuality. They couldn't tell their parents that they had gotten raped because the parents wouldn't believe them, wouldn't listen. Oh, you wanted it. You were being a slut. I had a girl that I dated briefly, like her and I had stayed friends because I just realized like I was kind of back and forth on mental health issues and stuff like that. I helped her actually file a complaint. And, a guy did jail time that was raping her. It was her mom's boyfriend. Mm. And her mom wouldn't do anything about it. Like, that for me, like, it just seeing that the way that these girls felt, it broke my heart because they felt so alone. And even though I only had one parent, even despite all of my mental health issues, and there was a couple of times, especially right before I was killing myself, where I wasn't able to see it quite as clearly. But one of the things that I, as a core of myself, I know is that I can always rely on my mom to listen. She will tell me what she thinks, whether I agree with it or not. And my mom and I do not agree on everything. She's a lot more conservative than I am. And I don't mean that as a criticism to her, and I'm not saying she's racist or anything, but she's definitely more conservative politically than I am.
But she listens, and that's the key.
She listens.
And she doesn't make you feel less than for your feelings.
Exactly. My mom has never belittled my feelings, even when I was wrong. And there's a lot of people that will, that have supported me as I've been honest about my struggles, like with the 30 Reasons to Live thing that I did. And a lot of people telling me that they appreciated that I was willing to open up like that. The reason that I was able to come with the comfort to be able to do that is because my mom was always willing to listen and let me get it out. Show me. And sometimes it was so that she could show me where I was wrong. And there's a lot of, I got to get a hard time because of the relationship with my mom from some people because they think that my mom coddled me. My mom told me when I was wrong a lot. But because of the fact that we were close enough and we talked so often, like I still talk to my mom every day. And sometimes it's just a couple of messages. Hey, you doing all right? Or everything going okay? But I'm a single, she was a single mom. I don't have any biological siblings from her. Other than I've got 2 older sisters that are adopted for all intents and purposes. That their families abandoned them because they were both lesbians. And she was like, "I'll be your mom," and I'll be your little brother. And one of them actually lives up by you. When I go to Houston for Christmas, hopefully I'm gonna get to see her and meet her wife and their kids.
Nice.
But that's the type of person that my mom is. She's, you know, she may just have only one biological child, but she will be anybody's mama. And that's one of the most amazing things that I love about that woman. She walked away from an 8-ball a day coke addiction and a meth addiction cold turkey.
That's insane, man.
Like that, and even though I've never tried those things, just in working, you know, and friends dealing with recovering addictions and all of that, like I've been able to learn some about what that means. And even just with what I know, it just blows me away, because I've seen how often those drugs individually can kill someone from getting clean. So, you know, but because I know that about her and what she went through, I have never tried either one. I've never tried heroin, never thought about any of it. And it's not to judge those that do, because I understand addiction comes from mental illness. So please let me be clear. I have friends that have recovered from that stuff, and they can talk to me about it, and I'm not going to judge them. But the reason why those friends feel like they have to talk to me is because they're not getting that support from their actual family. So I'm being their family. Hi, Batsy. And it breaks my heart, because when parents aren't engaged, they're not taking care. They're not understanding their mental health. Now, the other thing you have, and I've come to realize this. You know, we talk about that argument. Oh, these mental illnesses didn't exist when I was young.
Oh man,
they did.
Hey, real quick before we dive into this, can we take our first break?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and take our first break, and then we're going to dive into this argument, because I'm going to pick it apart to give you guys the ammunition to have more conversations about it. And shut it down.
Before we do, I got a dad joke for you.
Hit me.
A little bit. What do you call a fish wearing a bow tie? Sophisticated.
Yes. Oh God, I love it. I love it. Oh, I love it.
And we'll be right back.
Up like we do. No one does us like we do. Always go hard with this crew. Welcome to the show, let's make moves. Nothing's gonna stop us, it's not to get rough. Turn the whole room up, it's never enough. Let's go, 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 let's go. Gonna go and take it over. You're calling call us King Kong. Here we come, running through the door. Don't wait long, don't blink.
All right. So, you were saying.
All right. So, this argument that people have about, this is the some of the older generations, and then some of the younger ones will even use it today. So I'm not being ageist or anything, but we see this argument. Oh, that didn't exist in my day. So first of all, it did. Let's just stop that right now. Just because it wasn't discussed, just because it wasn't as diagnosed, just because it wasn't as widely viewed as it is now, doesn't mean it didn't exist. Because addiction was a problem in the 50s and 60s, but women weren't really allowed to talk about how much their husband drank. They weren't allowed to talk about how much their husband gambled away. They weren't allowed to talk about how abusive he was when they had sex. All of these things were there. We just weren't allowed to talk about it. Anxiety attacks were a thing, but it was, it's like it was just ignored. Like people pretended it didn't exist. Like the whole Stepford Wives thing. You just had to put on a pretty face. Well, here's the deal. Putting on a pretty face is why mental health has gotten worse. So if we want to use the argument, so it existed back then, and it's worse, and we're just now getting the information that really starting to be able to get the results, because it was swept under the rug. And they just pump Valium and all these different narcotic drugs down their throats, and that was the thing. We throw pills at it and ignore it. With adult ADHD, and this is one of the things that I've come to learn over the last few months. I joined a couple of groups on Facebook that are focused on adults with ADHD. If you have mental health issues, there is a group on Facebook of people with that mental health issue. Join it for support, because what you're going to learn really quick is that a lot of these issues are very common among your peers. Okay. Mommy's little helper. Yep. There are these groups on Facebook, not just for, moms, or not just groups for dads, but I'm in ADHD groups, bipolar groups, anxiety groups, stuff like that. So you're going to see that you're not alone. And that's an important thing to understand when you're trying to come to grips with your mental health. The second thing, and one of the things that I learned in one of the ADHD groups is in adults, so often they throw out anxiety and depression diagnoses because they don't because of the belief that ADD and ADHD only exist in kids. Okay. But untreated ADD and untreated ADHD looks like depression and anxiety.
As well as
it has now been scientifically proven that that's a fact. So as parents, not only do we need to be watching these things for our kids and realizing that what we were taught was probably wrong. It was usually wrong in most of those things. The other thing that we have to realize is we have to pay attention to our own mental health. It's like last year when I did the episode about advice for new dads, and in the section when I was talking about postpartum depression. Okay. First of all, postpartum depression affects 20% of dads. So that means 1 in 5. 1 in 5 dads will get postpartum depression. But when we talk about postpartum depression, it's moms, which is important. Don't get me wrong. But the reason, and dads should be familiarizing themselves with the symptoms of postpartum, not just to watch out for their partner after birth, because it can take 2 years. It's still 2 years, whether it's mom or dad. But the second thing is dads are going through a change too. While there wasn't the physical impact of the pregnancy,
there's a lot
it's psychological. It is a psychological trauma. It really is. Postpartum is a form of PTSD. So we have to start having these conversations, because the less we talk about mental health, the bigger of a problem it's going to get. If we want to have situations like, if we want to get rid of situations where a parent is losing their mind and killing their family, we've got to be having honest conversations with each other and with our kids about mental health, because education is one of the biggest keys to gaining control of a problem, because you got to understand it to handle it. And if you don't understand your mental health, you don't understand your child's mental health, and then all of a sudden they're suicidal, you're suicidal, you're having anxiety attacks you don't understand. These are all things that have happened, continue to happen, because we don't pay attention enough to mental health.
Yep. I mentioned earlier that I know my dad has anxiety, and you were talking about how it just was ignored. It was swept under the rug. It wasn't talked about. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize until I met my wife, who is like the definition of introvert, how introverted my dad is. In a family, me, my brother, and my mom are all extroverts, and how much anxiety he feels going out to places. And one of the things I felt like, medication can be good, it can be bad. Like you said, a lot of times, oh, you have ADHD, here's a pill. Oh, you have ADHD, here's a pill. Oh, you have ADHD, here's a pill. But when you have a diagnosed depression, you've tried to do everything you can. Yes, I'm sorry. Daughter does not want to go to bed. When you have diagnosed, you've tried everything, you've done everything, that little pill can do a lot of good. It really can ease the mind. And I say that because I am a kid talking to my father, but I have told him, Dad, a regular anxiety pill would do wonders for you. It would, because I know how much it does for me and calms me and brings me back to a somewhat normal level. On that same note, he takes a Zoloft to sleep, but he won't, or Xanax to sleep. I'm sorry, but he won't actually get on a prescription for it.
You see, and here's the thing, and I want to clarify, because I don't want anybody to think I'm speaking out against medicine. I take medicine every day for my depression and my ADHD. Okay, but medicine is helpful. So let me be clear on that. I would not have made as much progress as I've made in the last 2 years had it not been for the fact that I got a medication. And I can sympathize with those. I can sympathize. Sorry, the right word. Sympathize with those that don't like medication. I completely understand. But one of the things about mental health is coping mechanisms. That's one of the things that you learn going through therapy and stuff like that is coping mechanism, things that you can do to, have that outlet or that focus, because the medicine doesn't take care of all of it. Well, let's just be clear here. It's not an end all be all. But like for me, my outlets are drumming. It's the drumsticks that are on my forearms. Music in general really is an outlet for me.
Same.
Driving, things like that. Getting on the medication to get yourself back to homeostasis, get yourself back to, make that level a more attainable goal. And then developing those coping mechanisms so that you do have, some semblance of proper control. And then possibly working with your doctor to back the meds back down and make sure that you're still able to function. Most doctors will understand that when you say, hey, look, this is my goal. And you tell them that. You say, hey, this is my goal. I understand I'm needing medication now, but I would like to get to the point where I can work back off of it. And if you communicate that with your care team, it is possible. In some cases, I understand that there are going to be some individuals with severe issues where really you're on meds for the rest of your life. Don't fight that, because, we give our kids vitamins. We make sure that we plan our diets to have the proper nutrients. Yes, these medications a lot of times are made of things that are generated in the lab. I get that. But it's to replace something. It's to fix something in our bodies that isn't working properly.
Yep. And
so I'm definitely not against medication for treating mental health. But when you have doctors that are just throwing Valium, or hey, I'm going to dump Xanax down your throat, when it's not fixing anything, it's just masking the problem. And I think that's the difference is approaching medicating a patient with the goal of helping to solve problems, not just mask it, because that is the masking the problems is why so many people are against medication and going to the doctor. I understand our medical system is crap and everything's expensive, but if we rip away that, what we clearly see is a lot of people being afraid of having to take unnecessary medications or being stuck with something for the rest of their life.
Well, you said it. Like, as of right now, unfortunately, me and my wife are off our medications because American insurance system blows, and at the moment, neither of us are working great jobs that can provide insurance. So at the moment, we don't have our medications. And we were talking before this episode, life in this house right now is a little bit of this, but one of the things that does help me and my wife is when we can bring ourselves down. We do understand our mental health problems. We know that they were there and we can discuss them. So even though we are going through it right now, we do have those lucid moments where we talk about it and we figure it out and we push through it. And it's bullshit that we are one of the wealthiest countries in the world with one of the shittiest healthcare systems. And I'm not going to get into it because we could talk hours on this, but
hours.
Just in the mental health department, we could talk hours, and how much you'd said it, like our mental health has gotten worse. The thing is about from the 80s to the 90s, our mental health in this country was rocketing, finally getting better, because they had done so many stories in the 60s and 70s about how shitty it was, them frying people's brains and doping them up and locking them in rooms, and it was getting better. And then it went from diagnosing and helping the mental health to locking them away, and cops dealing with mental health issues on the streets instead of a certified mental health professional. And we now you see these communities that are finally implementing these programs, and their issues are going way down. And we need a better form of care for all of it, but especially mental health in this country. Like,
absolutely,
therapy should not cost thousands of dollars. It should not only be for the rich. You should be able to find therapy for cheap. That's not going to take you 6 months to a year on a wait list to get into one time, and then repeat that process for another 6 months to a year.
It's and you're right about that. And I'll emphasize it with this. When I was getting back on the meds, it took me a year after I decided, because I would schedule an appointment when I was like, okay, I need to get in. And it was a 45 to 60 day wait at a minimum. And then I would be up and down and up and down. And by the time it came close to the appointment, I either forgot, which wasn't very often, but hey, I have ADHD, let's be real, it happened. Or it was feeling good enough. It was like, this is how much work it's going to take to get in. Like, I need to just figure this out on my own, because there's such a disparity when it comes to these things. Yes, we have crisis lines. There's suicide crisis lines all over the U.S. I'm sure if you're watching from an country internationally, chances are there's something as well. I love that the Trevor Project is a thing. Being able to have that for LGBTQ individuals that need it is absolutely amazing. I think it's great. I thought it was fantastic when that Raiders player came out that said he was going to donate $100,000, and the NFL turned around and said, "Hey, us too." That's amazing. They could definitely use that money. That's a great organization to support. But the fact that to actually get in and get down, and that's just for us, that's not just for a psychologist, and therapists are easily available. No, it's both. So if you're trying to get into therapy and get medicated, it's there's a lot. I think that there needs to be something better for that. And I don't know what the solution is. I'll admit I'm not the smartest person in the world. I know better, but there's got to be a solution because accessibility in by getting by getting adults and children the mental health that they need, we can reduce a lot of problems. We can make dents in addiction. We can make dents in bullying and behavior issues in school. Suicides in general. I mean, 75% of suicides are men. That's just, it blows me away. And the fact that even though I grew up in I spent most of my adolescent life in a rural area, where per capita a lot less people and a lot more distance. It was, I had a couple of kids in my youth group at different points that took their own lives. The church that I ran the youth group at, there was a guy that hung himself from our swing set.
So we talked about bullying. There was this one kid who rode my bus, bullied me relentlessly from 7th grade to I can't even remember when I finally stopped seeing him, but and he was violent. Like he had stabbed the kid in the neck with a pencil at one point. And then I think my senior year found out that he had hung himself in his tree in his front yard. And I actually felt sorry for him because it was in that moment I realized that like he picked on me because he was hurting.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, and I found out that like his dad had abused him and all kinds of things and had been going on. And it just made me realize how much he was hurting and he took it out on me. And it shouldn't be that way for anybody, but it really shouldn't be that way for a teenager.
And here's the thing. And here's the thing that we have to acknowledge as a society. And there's a lot of people that are going to be like, I don't want to do that. Violence is a learned behavior.
Yep.
Continual violence, continual bullying is a learned behavior. Now, that learned behavior may come from a bad environment from the home. That learned behavior might come from associating with somebody who's in that type of a situation. And because the parents aren't intervening because they don't see what's going on, the bad habits get picked up. When we look at like, for example, Columbine. When I was in high school, my senior year, I was going to an alternative school, and I did a lot of independent study. One of the things I decided to learn a lot about was Columbine. With my mental health issues and what I had, a lot of people thought I was going to be that kid that pulled the school shooting. And so, stories of Columbine and stuff like that just fascinated me because, it's kind of like a picture on the other side. Because when I snapped from the bullying, that was when I decided to kill myself. So I was, part of me just felt like there was this parallel where that was the path that I took. They were the path that I could have taken. And I think that, as I looked at and I learned about Eric and Dylan, one of the things that I learned is that Dylan's mom does speaking events now, talking about the importance of mental health, dealing with bullying. But, she talks a lot about watching your kids, getting involved, getting engaged, paying attention, because she missed a lot of signs. And she takes responsibility for that. And I will tell you, and I can understand, like I said, violence is a learned behavior. But Dylan was influenced. Dylan and Eric were influenced, and they were drawn to that from their experiences. They had this mutual downward spiral with their mental health because these guys were friends. They were experiencing all the same crap, and it was bonding over trauma. But as it went, they just started pulling each other down and down and down and down and down. And because of the fact that the parents weren't having those discussions, the school wasn't intervening, all of this, all of those signs that got missed. 13 people died. 20 plus were injured. And had the bombs that they created gone off as appropriately, it would still be one of the biggest it would still be today one of the biggest mass casualties in the U.S. outside of a terrorist attack, because had the bombs gone off that they had planted, over 200 students would have died. Like that's been found through the evidence. If you look at the case files, the bombs that they found that didn't go off. Like, yeah, they had some pipe bombs, but they had built 2 bombs that they put right by the lunchroom that would have taken out a large portion of that student body. These kids did this because they had been allowed to learn those behaviors in their environments, because the adults that should have been controlling the situation weren't paying attention, weren't intervening, and weren't putting an emphasis on mental health. Because these kids that bullied Eric and Dylan, that's where the learned behavior came from, because that was their environment. It wasn't changing. That's how they learned to respond. When you have these individuals that go into these individuals that lose their shit and commit a crime, murder, mass shooting, stuff like that. All of that comes back to all the way back at the beginning to mental health. It always does. You don't see a sane person pull off murder unless it's in self-defense, or pull off a mass casualty type of event. You look at the pictures of that guy from the Arvada, Colorado shooting from The Dark Knight. Like, you look at that and you can even just see in his face, he had mental health issues. The Vegas shooter,
the young
health issues.
The young boy, I can't remember his name, the redhead. Like, he looks wide-eyed crazy in his mugshot picture.
Like, you can see these things in these individuals. Now, you and I, because we're neurodivergent, we have these issues. We see the world differently. We may have a different perception of it. So that's one of the things that we have to accept, because we can look at somebody and go, that guy's a creeper. That chick is, that chick is crazy. Like, we have, like, nothing against crazy chicks. I have a shirt that says I love crazy women. Like, but there is that actual point where you just look at it and go, whoa, there is an actual problem there. And it's not being dealt with. And if we don't start taking care of ourselves, and yes, that's going to mean sometimes, the kid has to spend an evening in their room reading while you and the spouse have a date night on the couch watching a movie, so that you guys can have that time together, have that talking together. Or maybe you get an hour less sleep because after the kids go to bed, you guys actually sit up and talk to each other and decompress. It's healthy behaviors to do these things.
Yep.
Having a date night with your spouse, you guys can get out, connect, spend time with other adults, decompress. Yes, these things can cost money, and I understand that. That's difficult, especially in this economy. Like, my wife and I, we struggle, but we still put an emphasis on trying to do that as often as we can, because, and a lot of times it's just her and I going to the bar. She has a couple of drinks. I have a, pitcher of beer, and that's it. But even something that simple can be good to allow your brain to decompress, because, outside of the mental health issues, of course, doing that stuff with your partner is important, because once your kid grows up and moves out, you're still going to be there, and that relationship is still important. And if you're not doing the things to preserve that relationship, then that's going to cause more stress on your mental health if and when things eventually do break down. So taking those time, and this is why I always have that message of self-care. 20 minutes of meditation. If that means you got to sit out on the porch and smoke a bowl and listen to a Bob Marley song, it's not a bad thing. Now, being stoned all day to the point where you can't move and your kids suffer, obviously that's a problem. But, if you take a Percocet because you had to have knee surgery, and that takes the pain away so you can function a little better, that's not a bad thing. But if you're popping 5 at a time, obviously that's a bad thing. So we have to stop looking at everything as black and white. Just because somebody has to take a medication doesn't make it bad. The overdoing it is the problem, and it's one of the things that cognitive behavior therapy talks about. You got to stop focusing on the black and white and start living in the gray, because that's where you actually make progress.
And you mentioned it too. I was the same way. I was the kid that everybody thought was going to come to school, and like I literally had kids tell me, "I'm nice to you because when you shoot up to school, I want you to be you will think of me." And I'm like,
yeah, I heard that a number of times, man.
Christ, and kids are the meanest people in the world. Truly, we have no filter. They don't at that age. We don't realize how much words do hurt. We're taught that stupid rhyme: "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words cut like a fucking blade to the heart."
We need to get rid of that. I hate that phrase. Like as a kid, like I heard it all the time. Oh, they're just bullying you. You'll be okay. Sticks and stones. No, fuck that. I know, because here's the thing. Yes, actions speak louder than words, and I love that saying because it's so much truth. But the problem is these individuals that are spewing this hate, they're acting on it too. I got called so many derogatory names. A lot of them were slurs against homosexuals. Because I'm not going to repeat the words. There's no room for it. I don't need it. I hate those words. But I heard those words enough that I actually questioned my own sexuality. The only person who would listen to that was my mom. It's my sophomore year. The one time I fought back, and this was actually roughly 8 months before I almost took my life. My sophomore year, I was getting bullied by a kid. I was walking down a hallway to go to a class. He grabbed me, tripped me, pushed me on the ground, and started to hit me. I snapped. I got up, and I fought back. Okay? I defended myself. There's anybody that saw that will confirm that it was all in self-defense. I got suspended for a week because he was a football player. I'm going to say that again. I got suspended for a week because he was a fucking football player. And I will say that school, I don't know if the suit is still going on, but I saw last year in 2019, my same school was facing a class action lawsuit because of so many bullying issues. But that school was small. My graduating class was 126. But here's the thing. It's not just that school. I can sit there all that. It's not just that school. It's not just one administrator. It is an entire state of mind and a lack of concern for mental health, not just for kids, but for teens. Teens are going through so many hormonal changes, not just the young women, but also the young men. And they don't understand it. People aren't talking about those things. And so it snowballs. And that's why middle school and high school are hell for a majority of the people.
Yep. And on that note, we're going to take another commercial break and come back and kind of wrap it up and talk some dad culture. But I, real quick before we move on, I did pull this up while you were talking about it, and I want to throw this up there. If you are having issues and you do need someone to talk to, there's the number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Find someone to talk to. I will not ashamed to admit, in my teenage years, I called this number, and it probably saved me. So you got to find someone that you can trust and say these things to. The
one thing I'll say, and I said this, if you get a chance, you go on Facebook, you search the hashtag 30 Reasons to Live, the number 30 Reasons to Live. I did a post every day in June about why I'm thankful I did not take my life when I was suicidal when I was 16. June 4th marked 17 years since I almost took my life. I was literally minutes away from hanging myself. And I am going to be working on transitioning that into a small podcast series. I'm just working out some details and getting the recording done. That will be live, available to share by the end of July. And that is something that I just want people to be able to share with people that need it. That's all it is. I'm not monetizing anything. I'm building a playlist on Spotify to go with a song for each post. You'll understand that more if you check it out. But, saying that you are struggling, that you're having anxiety, that you're feeling suicidal, that you want to die. I had a friend text me last week and tell me she wanted to die. say something to someone.
Yep.
Saying you need help shows strength. It is not a weakness. Being suicidal, being anxious, needing help is not a weakness. You can never be expected to do everything alone. There's several billion people on this world. It's okay to ask for help.
Yep.
When we come back, we'll talk to some dad culture, some dad jokes, lighten it up here before we end our day.
Up like we do. No one does us like we do. Always go hard with this crew. Welcome to the show, let's make moves. Nothing's gonna stop us, it's not to get rough. Turn the whole room up, it's never enough. Let's go, 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 let's go.
Gonna go and take it over. You call us King Kong. Here we come, running through the door. Don't wait long. Don't blink.
All right.
Oh.
So that last commercial was for the Sports Report, Monday nights, 10 Eastern, right here on Pinfall. That is hosted by my good buddy Will Morgan, the guy that's normally co-host here on First Gen Dads. We also have Tony C. and Dan Warner along with us as we talk all things sports. For those of you that are wondering, right now, end of the third in NBA Finals Game 2, Suns are up 88-78. And also
make that money.
Man, it's. I think it's gonna flip when it goes to Milwaukee. I think
they're gonna win. They're gonna win. They're gonna win at least one in Milwaukee. The Suns are on fire right now, so I don't know if they don't take one in Milwaukee. But then that's another real podcast. We didn't air this week. I haven't talked to Kay about this, and if she's watching, she might cuss me out for this. But I think we might do our show next week. So I'll confirm that with her and then get back to y'all. But be on the lookout for that. Also, then that is Geek Gauntlet this Saturday, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. Big show coming. The cast of the new movie Black Psy is going to be on the show with Will and Shaw, talking about the development of the movie, the characters, all of it. So make sure you check that out. This is really cool, really big news. Kind of late notice, but we're trying to get it out there. So make sure you come and check that out on Saturday, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. It's probably going to be an extra long show, but it's going to be a really cool show.
I can't wait for that. I'm looking forward to that. That looks like it's going to be really good.
So where do you want to go first, culture or jokes, sir?
So really quick, before we transition to culture, we'll do culture. Something that Linda said, whatever happened to the old standby, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything else. And that is something that we should teach our kids. Absolutely. But the unfortunate thing is too many people don't. And so on top of teaching our kids that, we really have to emphasize that it doesn't matter what they say. You can't respond. And it's, because you have to look at it from a compassion, because they could be being that, just like you said with that guy that was bullying you. There are a whole plethora of reasons they could be spewing all that hate and all that crap. Yeah. Just don't respond, because have compassion for them. I'm sorry you're going through whatever's making you feel like this, but I'm not going to entertain that negative energy. Because too many people don't practice. If you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all. And Linda, thank you for stopping and joining us tonight. I appreciate you.
And then we bring that up. The golden rule. Golden rule needs to make a comeback. I remember that being posted in every classroom from like kindergarten to 4th grade, and just be nice to one another and do kind things.
And the problem, and I love treat other people how you want to be treated. Yes. I love that saying. The flaw in that saying, though, is that so many people don't understand how they deserve to be treated.
Yeah.
Because they learn from a chaotic atmosphere, so that's how they respond. And so
toxicity is toxic. What else can you say?
It really is. All right, so let's get into some dad culture.
Okay, I normally do the grunt every time I'm on here for this one, but I gotta say that song makes me want to like kick out my New Balance and get out my golf shirt and like
just sit on the mower and have a beer.
Yeah, got my big old antenna headphones on.
Oh yeah. Just listen to the ball game. So for dad culture today, I wanted to throw this out there. I think this is a good conversation topic because it pairs with what we've been talking about to a point with mental health. What do what are some things that you do? What are some things that you do to unwind as a dad? That you recommend?
So music is, you mentioned it. Music is a big one for me. Music has been my escape from all of my mental health, the bullying, all of it since I was a teenager. That's my safe space and where I can, it also helps my ADHD and kind of slowing things down and letting me process. Also just as much as I'm there for her, my daughter is a big one for me. Just playing with her. I picked her up today by myself and she sits diagonal right behind me so we can check on her. And at lights, I was tickling her. And I tell you, that laugh, just, and I've worked with kids for 10 plus years. I love kids. They're amazing. And I've always thought like that was so fulfilling. But I didn't realize until you have a kid, the attachment, the love that is there when they laugh, and you are the cause of that laugh.
Oh, like, that feeling.
Even if it's just a tickle, which my daughter is one of the most ticklish kids I've ever met. But that feeling when she just gets that belly giggle, and then you stop, and it takes her a second to go, oh, you tickle me, Dada. Oh, that is one of the greatest feelings in the world. And truly, like I said, I deal with mental health on a regular basis right now, and she is the reason I will always carry on, is because I want to be there for her. I want to see her grow. I want to see her get married if she wants to, have kids if she wants to, whatever. And then I think I've said this on this show. My biggest thing is I want to raise a compassionate, caring, accepting, loving person that just makes this world a better place in some way, shape, or form. And and then to get back to your question though, the other thing is probably just video games are a big one for me. Video games are a big, and then this is coming in here and working on pinfall, and I will zone into this for 4 or 5 hours, and people are like, "Man, you work a regular job." I was like, "Yeah, but it's not work to me. I enjoy it. I like what I do."
Right.
I like seeing how the work that I put in, it bears fruit. I see things grow. I see things change and get better. And so, and then again, I do this for her because I want her to have an amazing life. And if this is successful, like I feel in my heart, it will be.
It will be.
And I want her to have that opportunity. And God, I would love to one day do a podcast with my kid. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And I think we've talked about it on the show about the dad who does a podcast with his daughter. And she's 4. She's 4. My daughter will be 4 next year. Let's go.
I know me and Will have talked about, I think at some point this season, we're going to do a stream with the kids and we're going to game together. So I think that's coming. For me though, like for my thing is first of all, dads have been doing self-care stuff the whole time. Like it's not just this isn't a new thing for dads to do self-care, but what it used to be, dad went and had a beer in the garage and fixed something and tinkered something and listened to the game. Or dad went for a drive, dad went to the hardware store. Dad went to,
somewhere by himself.
Races. Dad went did something by himself, but that's just what it was. Now we're putting an explanation for what that really is. It's self-care. Some of those dads, they like to just go sit in the garage and, sit in a room and play their guitar, sit and play video games, sit and draw, read, listen to music, whatever the case may be. Fishing, that's another one. Self-care has been around as dads. We just need to we need to have more conversations about it because, whether that's, like I said, sitting on your porch, smoking a bowl, having a beer, playing with your guitar, playing drums, going fishing, going to a ball game, that type of thing. There's self-care, and it's important to do because if you're not taking care of your own mental health to the point where you're able to be there and be present for your kids, they're going to notice that. Just because you're there, if you're not there, they notice. And that's why I want to talk about this in dad culture today is taking that time, and sometimes that's going out with the guys. For the ladies that watch or listen, your guy needs to have his bro time. Yeah. Whether that's gaming, going out for a beer, I'm not condoning like, hey, let him go to the strip club every week. But if you're that type of wife, good on you. But he needs to be allowed to have that time to game with his buddies or to go have a beer with his buddies, go watch a game, go to Top Golf. That is such an important thing because you should have that time for our ladies. You should have that time as well, whether that's, if you're the type that wants to do, go get your hair done or your nails or whatever, you're the one that wants to go fishing or play video games or smoke a bowl or have a beer, any of it.
Everybody should have that time. And that includes your kids when they get to that age where people get overwhelmed, period. End of story. Children get overwhelmed, teens, everyone gets overwhelmed. I could go 2 ways with this, but I actually have a question for you today in dad culture because as dads, we do have a kind of a stereotype of being usually the fun guy, the one who does things that might be a little bit questionable with their kids because it's fun. So I did something for the first time today. And I can't believe I'm going to admit this on air, but so I did I let my daughter drive today. My daughter's 3.
Like she's sitting on your lap?
Sitting on my lap. This is something I wanted to do with my kids since I was little and did it with my dad. Like it meant more to me than it did to her at the moment. But if I could scroll back all the way up to the first comment from Kay, it would say that, again, she will remember that. And it will be a huge memory for her. It's the same thing. And my wife always gives me an eye roll. This started because when we run to the store, just up the corner of our house, I let her sit in the front seat. We don't go fast. We ride around the corner. And I do that because it's something my dad did with me. It was special time. It was something sweet. I understand there are risks. I understand. But she falls down and all of our houses are tiled. There's risks everywhere. I understand that. But I feel like those are things that she will always remember. Special times, little nuggets, just little 5-minute nuggets.
And that's the thing is those things are going to come up. You're going to have those little moments. Like my son, one of those things that's like just that special moment for us is he and I sit down and we watch Bob's Burgers. And I know that, the animation domination stuff, oh, that's too much for a kid. No, it's not, because guess what? When it's something, he's like, what is that? Pause it, have a conversation.
So
and it lightens the air, lightens the mood. But, when he looks back, he's going to, those times when his dad, he's going to remember some of those times we were sitting there just, watching Bob's Burgers or watching a movie, just he and I, just being there with each other and doing something that's fun that both of us like. That's our thing.
Some of my greatest memories some of the memories I remember the most are times when my dad would just let me stay up and we'd watch a raunchy, dirty movie together, seeing my first boobs on TV or something like that, on Commando or
Ren and Stimpy was mine and my mom's.
Or Police Academy. Police Academy was one of the first raunchy movies I ever watched, and that was with my dad. But my question was going to be, so again, we tend to do questionable things as fathers. What is one of your things that you have done with your son that might be questionable, but it was a great memory? Y'all had a blast. He was fine.
I've let him. Now he was a bit older, but I have let him sit on my lap on the steering wheel for a small thing. Like, and it was like for ours, it was around the parking lot.
Yeah.
We've done that a few times. Some fireworks. We had some fun with that. Started with sparklers to make sure he could, not freak out. I didn't just like hand him a firecracker and go, "Hey, what happens?"
So that's something I've tried for New Year's and I haven't tried again. My daughter does not like them. It does not matter what it is. It's I truly, it's one of those things that I feel like might be a sign of neurodivergency, because I don't know if it's necessarily a noise thing or if it's overwhelmed.
And it could be like, because obviously with a lot of those, it's like with Amber, her issue is more often visual stimuli.
Yeah.
She has some migraine issues, so I think that's related to that. But within neurodivergence, sometimes it's not an auditory thing.
Yeah,
it is visual. And so like for her, that could be what it is, and her brain's just not quite sure how to process that yet. So once she's used to it, you may be able to revisit, because like with Michael, he was, I want to say he was about 6 when we did fireworks for the first time, and he was fine with sparklers. And the bottle rockets was a little much for him though, because I think that, that little blast at the beginning when it lights kind of shocked him. And I wasn't like having him launch him from his hand before anybody freaks out. We'd made little tubes that we were using to shoot him out of, light it, let it drop in, hold the tube and launch it. And with Roman candles as well. Some traditions are worth carrying on. And those were still a little too much. Like, he got comfortable with the Roman candles. He was fine. But I think it was just because all of that was at the end and he was holding it from the bottom. It was pointed away with the bottle rocket one. He could feel it more because it was just like a big thin PVC tube that we made out of, into a launcher or something. And that one scared him. Like it legitimately scared him. Like, he started crying. I was like, oh, okay, well, let's chill for a second. Calm down. We'll take a look. If you don't want to do anything else, that's fine. But he ended up doing the Roman candles and he was fine with that. And Amber's watching this, so I'm probably getting in trouble for that one. But I can't remember if I told her about that or not. But we'll find out. Again, if I don't live to see Monday, it was her.
We were going along, but I've got a couple more. I got another dad joke if you're ready to go to dad jokes.
Yeah, let's go to dad jokes.
All right.
All right, so hit me. What you got?
What do a tick in the Eiffel Tower have in common?
What?
They both parasites.
As a musician, you'll get this one. My wife asked me to stop singing Wonderwall to her. I said maybe.
All right, I got one more.
Okay.
Oh shit! If my chair doesn't kill me, I thought the dryer was shrinking my clothes. Turns out it was the refrigerator all along.
What would the Terminator be called in his retirement? The Exterminator.
Oh, and on that, we say goodnight.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. To those of you that listen through the replay, whether you're watching it online or listening through the various platforms, thank you for joining us as well. For those of you that are watching live, maybe missed part of this, I will have, you can catch the recorded version through the Pinfall channels online starting tomorrow by 9 a.m. I will also have it through the First Generation Dad online by 9 a.m. as well. So thank you guys for joining us.
It is up on the Facebook page as of now. So.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. Perfect. So, but yeah, I'll have it through the Spotify or, through the stuff that I did. So the last year, for those who are still following through that, it will be there in the morning. Check us out on Monday nights. Check me and Josh and Will on the Sports Report right here, 10 Eastern on Pinfall. And we'll see you guys next week, 10 Eastern right here at First Generation Dad.
Have a good night, guys.